Hi guys, what is up? It is your girl Cadillac. I am here motivated and frustrated at the very same time. Motivated because this is a time that I have been fighting for Marcello for years, decades now, and haven't got much movement. And finally, people are actually listening to this story that I tell of Marcello Jackson, the wrongfully convicted man in Florida, and the struggle of me standing by his side. The thing is that it's frustrating because okay, let's start with the motivation. It was motivating because I started to feel like my story was actually being heard and that it was making a difference, letting people know that, look, we are more than these prison sentences that we and our loved ones have received. We're still human and we still have value, left in us. And the thing is that I was so motivated because people were listening, they were being encouraged. They're saying, oh, yeah, okay. The thing is to take your story. I am an average female, average, and that people think of people that go with individuals in prison as lower class or subhuman or something. Like, I don't know what they expect, but they don't expect quite a Keita Dixon when they hear of somebody that's going with a prisoner. You don't expect me. But the thing is that there are more people like me, hardworking individuals, law abiding individuals, great individuals that are with people that are incarcerated. This is something that is going on because our system does not seek justice, which it says it's the justice system, but it doesn't seek justice. It just wants the book to close. It doesn't matter how the book closes. It doesn't matter how the case is closed, whether they've come to the correct conclusion, whether they've come to the wrong conclusion. Um, it doesn't matter. And I believe that we had a good system that was set up with checks and balances to make sure that if you are going to condemn a person, that you have taken all the steps necessary to ensure that the person that you are condemning is actually guilty of the crime that they were accused of. And far too often, and over the years, we have gotten way. I don't even know if it actually really was, seeking justice. But if it was at one point, we are way off course. The court systems, the justice system does not seek justice. It wants a book closed. And it doesn't matter how that book get closed, and a bed needs to be filled. And it doesn't matter who it fills that bed. That's not a good recipe. And it leaves us, the family members of these people that have ended up in prison. It's a lot of things that end people up. It's not this one route to prison. Many factors are deciding factors in a person going to prison. It could be poverty, it could be lack of resources, it could be lack of parental guidance, it could be lack of even having parents or structure, it could be lack of knowledge, it could be lack of a lot of things, but it's lack of something that ends individuals up in prison. And instead of correcting what those lacks are, you can't stop everyone from going to prison, but I do believe a lot of people that are there could be detoured. And the thing that has happened is that Florida's prison has become overpopulated. There are too many people that are in prison. It's like a hoarder. I love to make analogies. I'm sorry if y'all don't like my analogies. If you do, give me a red heart emoji if you do like my analogies. But I think of it, the Florida. I'm gonna focus on Florida because this is what I know. Like, I know Florida system because I've been in it for so long, and over the years it has very drastically changed. drastically. And it was to where there were corrections officers, there were people that were actually, um, they had enough to run rec, like they had enough to run different, like going to library, going to this place, doing this activity. They had corrections officers for that, even for visitation. They had corrections officers that would sit outside in the patio area. Actually, when I first started visiting, they were able to smoke. So the only reason you would go outside is if you were a smoker. You can go out, they will open the doors for maybe 15 minutes, let you go out there and smoke, and then you come back in. That's how long I've been a freaking prison wife. That is how long. And cigarettes hadn't even been a part of DLC for years. So you know how long it's been. But they had COs that would be outside. They had some that would be inside, overseeing the visitors inside. And it became over the years less and less corrections officers. They started saying it wasn't enough to process the visitors. It started being hours upon hours just to get into a visitation, which does not get extended because they took 3 and 4 hours to let you in. You still have the same amount of time to visit. We started seeing I mean, it's not enough COs for all the abundance, and that creates a problem. That's a problem that's a problem for the COs. That's a problem for our loved ones because now they're further just locked down because they can't do these certain things. They can't go to library. They can't. It's lots of things they can't do because there's not enough staffing. The visitation, like I said, it's so much that plays into it. And now DOC is over capacity. There's too many people in prison in Florida. And because of the shutdown, there are people that are waiting in jail for their court dates or whatever, and some will and won't be sentenced to prison. Okay, so you already have an overpopulated prison population, and you have new arrivals that are expected. What does that create? It's too much. So I like to liken it to a hoarder. If you had a hoarder, and the person, they have to start coming in with hazmat crews, and you have to have it's to the point where this person has accumulated, not overnight. A hoarder will accumulate stuff over years. And I used to love the show Hoarders. Usually it was something psychologically that happened, something dramatic, something that happened in the person's life that made them just hold on to everything, just hold on to every single thing that they came in contact with. And they would cry to the point where they didn't want to let nothing go. You'd be like, oh, can I throw this away? No, 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 don't touch that. Well, can I throw that away? No, 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 don't touch that. Everything is necessary to stay in that house. But the house is no longer functionable. The house, you can't live in it because it's overtaken by too much stuff. It's too much there. It's too cluttered. It's nothing but chaos in a house, a hoarded house, a house that hoards. So I liken DOC to a hoarder's house. It's too many inmates. You can't do necessary things that you need to do with them because it's too many, and the staff is getting fewer. So you're adding a larger prison population but a smaller staff. That does not equate to that's not adding up to something good. So we suggested Florida, the families of the incarcerated citizens are suggesting great bills that can start alleviating this hoarding of human life. DOC, Florida DOC has become more like a warehouse. It's not really the corrections because they don't have the programs to correct the individuals where they went wrong and detour the crime and stuff. They don't have the programs. They don't have anything. So it becomes the individuals just being locked down for years, excessive amount of years, just locked down. In that time, did the person become a better individual or a worse individual? We don't know because how do you know? The person has to try to take it upon themselves to whatever they can do to try to become a better individual and prepare for release. And some don't even aren't even motivated to prepare for release. Why would, in your mind, you don't get out for 20 years? What makes preparing for release dire? Most likely you're going to focus on what's at hand, and what's at hand is what's going on in the prison with your unit. That's what matters most, because that's what you really can focus on. You can't focus way out 20 and 30 and 40 years from now when you may get home. So just like that hoarder situation, if you had a hoarder, and DLC is shelving life, human life. It's like a warehouse now where you're stacking boxes, you're stacking human lives up, just leaving there. And the shelf life of it. What is the shelf life of a human life in prison? What is that shelf life? Everything has an expiration date. You can't keep everything forever. Would you want some jelly that you had from 20, 30, 40 years ago? No, you can't shelf that jelly forever. You can't shelf a human forever. But back to the hoarding situation, how would you fix that issue? Would the answer to hoarding be to not part with anything? We're not going to let anything go. We're not going to condense. We're not going to get rid of anything. We're not going to sort through our mess. Maybe there was some convictions that were not quite sound. Maybe we had some laws that were not, they were more on that tough on crime era, and they weren't really on thinking about public, real safety and the individuals and the lives. So maybe we need to sort through that pile. And maybe there are some people that are eligible that still, however, fall under parole, because parole has been gone in Florida for a long time. But there could be some people that qualify for parole. Let's start sorting through that pile and let's see what we can get rid of. And instead of that, the situation, they want to just keep everything. Let's keep everything. There's no problem. The house is filled to capacity. It's about to be bulldozed, but we just need to keep everything. Everything. Everyone that's in prison, we need to keep them there because we're keeping the community safe. Okay. Now, do you see how this is? So let's see what are our options now. You have the person that doesn't want to get rid of anything. What is the new option is that they can't have anything else to add because they're to capacity. So what is it that we do? What do you do? Would you suggest buying another house for the hoarder, just to which I would like in building more prisons, asking for more money for this DOC, more money. We need more money, more resources for okay, so would I go and buy more things and add more to my hoard? Would I possibly buy a trailer and set that outside the house and fill that up eventually? Because I have to have a problem if I'm study accumulating all of this. There is a core reason I'm accumulating all of this. So the real answer is you have to let something go. They have to release somebody. They have to. How you can't continue to keep the population in prison. Number one, we have longer prison sentences than a lot of other states. If we just did what the normal states, majority of the states in the United States does, that would significantly cut our prison population, because we have a 85% time that you have to do on your crime, or sentence, I'm sorry, and most other states have 65. So that makes me wonder, is it just the people in Florida are worse? Are the people in Florida they commit more, they commit more crime or worse crimes, or is it pretty much crime? It's pretty much crime everywhere in the United States. So why are we holding people longer for the same crimes that they are, committing in other states? And I'm no way saying that, we should condone crime. What I am saying is crime and punishment should be equal. You have to get the punishment for the crime that you actually committed. You actually committed. All this just lock you up, and then we figure it out later. The family, you're usually, once you go into them prison gates, it's hard to prove your case and get yourself out of there. It'll take you a lifetime trying to get out of there. And I'm proof of that. So what do we do about the situation? I was on my lunch break and I was reading over this, it's like, to find a article like this, it's kind of upsetting because they're acting as though, when I read it to you, the way it comes off is like, oh no, oh no, oh no, what are we gonna do? We can't let this happen. That's what it comes across as. And it also is like, you're acting as though there's no answers. There are answers. You just don't want to hear the answers. You don't want to make change. There is something psychologically wrong there. But anyway, here is the article. It is from the Tampa Bay Times, and the headline reads, Four Florida prisons could close as lawmakers consider 140 million in cuts. Corrections officials will need to figure out how to reduce at least 6,000 prison beds through the closure of prisons and submit the plan to Governor Ron DeSantis and top lawmakers. As Florida lawmakers start piecing together the state's budget, Senate Republican leaders appear to be going against the state's top prison officials' wishes in the budget battles that could shutter four state run prisons and potentially trigger the early release of inmates. You see how that sounds very negative. When you say you're going to early release inmates, that puts up an alarm in a regular person that knows nothing about DLC. That sounds alarming. Oh no, we don't need to let inmates go. No, 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 we don't need to let inmates go. When all actuality, there are inmates that, and actually we don't call them inmates anymore. That's really bad. That further, those bad thoughts about the individual, that's a very bad label to have. Inmates, they are incarcerated, but they are still citizens and they're human, so we're going to call them incarcerated citizens. But the way that reads is very alarming. That's putting fear into the people that, like, no, we can't let this happen. Which, yes, this needs to happen. There are people that need to be released. Would you just let the doors to just be thrown open and everybody just get out, or would you like them to look through it? Hey, this person has served an excessive amount of time on this, but then there's a person that has the same charge and they haven't hardly did any time. Is it justified for this person to still be here? That person could have already been rehabilitated. You know what I'm saying? So sort through. Would that hoarder want you to just come through and just bulldoze that whole house? Or would they want you to let them look through it, and then they get rid of, reduce it that way? Okay, so let's continue. The funding scuffle centers on a 140 million budget reduction that will require the Florida Department of Corrections to come up with a plan to shut down at least four state prisons by the end of the year and demolish the facilities by June 2024. The legislature would have no input on the plan. Corrections officials would need to figure out how to reduce at least 6,000 prison beds throughout the closure of the prisons and submit the plan to Governor Ron DeSantis, Senate President Wilton Simpson, and House Speaker Chris Sprouse for approval. In a statement, Corrections Secretary March Inch said that he was disappointed by the legislature's initial budget proposal and warned it would make a significant impact on the agency's ability to carry out its mission. Inch said as much as Senate Criminal and Civil Justice Appropriations Committee Chairman Keith Perry, Inch said as much to Senate Criminal and Civil Justice Appropriations Committee Chairman Keith Perry in a letter sent March 3rd, a couple of weeks before the Senate rolled out its first budget proposal. Due to staffing levels, the department does not have functional capacity in the system to absorb the inmate population of a closed facility, especially coupled with the significant number of offenders in the county jails pending transfer to our system, Inch wrote to Perry. In the letter and in committee hearings early this month, Inch said that he had already ordered the closure of more than a dozen dorms this year, but that closing down a prison would be a significant error in judgment. If that were to happen, Inch warned in 6 months the prison system may exceed its 99% lawful capacity, which could trigger the early release of inmates as part of the control and release administrative process laid out in the state law. I can't close a prison, Inch told Perry. I can't be any clearer than that. But Florida Police Benevolent Association and the union that represents correctional officers is backing the Senate proposal to consolidate prisons, arguing that it will improve the critical staffing problems in the prison system. Correctional officers are being harmed by how woefully understaffed they are right now, said Matt Puckett, the executive director of the Police Benevolent Association. We don't need 4 facilities close by. We need one big facility that is fully staffed and has AC. The union's position that correction officials should temporarily close facilities, shift staff, and move inmates to nearby facilities. If the inmate population reaches a point where more bed space is required, then the mothballed facility can come back online, the union says. Tension in the air. The funding scuffle had already spilled into a tension-filled budget hearing last week in the Senate and was once again a point of contention on Wednesday when the Senate Appropriations Committee considered the chamber's first budget draft. During Wednesday's meeting, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Jeff Brandes argued the proposed consolidation plans do not align with Inch's visions. He also worried the plan does not help with an ongoing underlying issue of the Department of Corrections staffing shortages. Since the start of the pandemic a year ago, Florida's prison population has significantly declined to roughly 79,000 inmates, and prison admissions have dropped by 50%, Perry said. The inmate population is expected to tick up once the state's court system resumes trials and starts to address a mounting backlog of cases. Senate Criminal Justice Committee Chairman Jason Pizzo was worried a consolidated prison system could be overwhelmed by a sudden influx in inmates. How are we walking into a massive class action suit? Pizzo asked last week. How is this not gross negligence? During Wednesday's meeting, Perry addressed those concerns again. I do not believe these reductions will leave the criminal justice system unprepared when jury trial resumes, he said. We don't know how quickly this will occur and what level of resources will be needed to keep up with this demand. Brandes pressed Perry on the staffing issues on Wednesday. He pointed out that about 40 correctional facilities in Florida are at emergency or critical staffing levels, and that the state spending roughly $90 million in overtime every year as a result of it. Years-long problem with retaining and recruiting correctional workers. We know that we need to increase correctional officers' salaries. Are there correctional officers' salaries in the budget? Brandis asked Perry during the meeting. The Senate budget proposal does not include any salary increases, Perry said. But he said the chamber is working on that and making sure the Senate aligns on that issue with the House. Brandis tried to amend the Senate budget to include 30 million, which he said would have provided 2,000 in bonuses in the estimated 8,000 correctional workers. The amendment failed mainly because it included language unrelated to salary increases that the Senate Appropriations Committee Chairman Kelly Stargos took great offense to. So, what's on the table? Both the Senate and the House budget proposals include language that molds a consolidation plan for the state's prison system. The House proposal, however, is not as strict and sweeping as the Senate plan. While the state requires a plan that could result in the demolition of at least 4 prisons, the House is giving corrections officials the option to submit a plan that would look at the closure of 2 state-run prisons. The House plan also would allow the department to submit budget requests for salary increases, would ask the department to include in its plan how cost savings from prison closures could lead to raises for correctional officers. I don't know how far this goes. I think it's worth pursuing, Puckett said. If it becomes a threat to the public or correctional officers and the inmates, I think everybody would say, okay, that's not something we can go along with. Puckett, however, says pay raises and stabilizing staff levels are the number one priorities for the union. If the consolidation plan, helps stabilize staffing, this is a much better approach to stabilizing the staffing than converting prisons to shorter shifts and initiative pushback by Inch to address overtime. Inch has pushed a switch from 12-hour to 8.5-hour shifts at 17 prisons despite objectives from the union. The dispute have spilled into court battles, and Inch asked legislature to continue funding that initiative. Okay, I think that's the end of it. So it's looking like what they're wanting is to more staff, higher pay. Okay, so we're going back to that hoarder. So this is the hoarder that wants to keep everything. So now we got to figure out how we're going to keep everything. Maybe we need some bins. We need more shelf space. We need more ways to inventory what we have. Let's sort it all out, but let's keep it all. Let's build shelves and let's build storage areas. And maybe we could get a trailer and maybe we could get workers to help maintain all my stuff. Like instead of the actual answers, the second look bill. Look, why don't you want to look at these convictions? If these convictions stand and they're good and they were done in good faith, why not look at it to make sure? Why not double check? Why not double check? I bet you through that second look, they're going to uncover a lot of people that should not be in this prison system under the second look bill that was put in, that has not been made a law, that needs to be made a law. Second look, people from 18 to 25 that could have been rehabilitated. They fell under these harsh laws that no matter what you did, you had to fall under these minimum mandatories, long minimum mandatories that you could have been done with serving on. The 65% bill would really significantly lower your prison population. There are many prisoners that have been given excessively long, and especially some of the ones that are eligible for parole. That means they've been there since the 80s, in the early 90s. I'm sure they have done 85 or 65% of their time. That can push them right on out the door. They've already done 65% if you go down to 65%. You can have some more that soon will be almost eligible to be released because you're no longer holding them to that 85% standard. Now they're at 65%. So there are ways, there are answers. Look at these bills. These are your answers because you have a hoarding problem in the Department of Corrections. There's a human hoarding problem, and there's an issue. Something is wrong that is making you want to hold on to all this human life and shelf all this life. Thank you. It's your girl Cadillac. It's your girl Cadillac.